It's not loading. Mic's on? No, it says one.
Mic's on, yeah.
Oh, right. Are we live? Now the chat comes up. I don't know what was going on. It was taking a while for that. And there's also a delay on this side. So welcome, everybody. Another live Q&A. If you've got questions, throw them in the chat. Good to see everybody. I've been doing a lot of these lives. I'm really enjoying it. We're trying to get some technical kinks worked out, both audio and video. But say hello, put your name in the chat, where you're joining us from, and then any questions you have, I'd love to answer them if I can. If not, we can just say hello and chat and, see what's happening. So I wanted to let everybody know too, we added our support link at the top of the frame if you're joining us from YouTube. Where you can go and support the channel. You can become a member, or you can also donate to the channel, and all of this helps us produce more content, do these kinds of things like the lives, and create more courses and everything else. It just helps us quite a bit. So with that, we got TikTok as well. TikTok's up and running. Cool. And let me see, my chat is not loading. Let's see. Yeah, like the window doesn't really show up. But if you are on here, can you just say hello into the chat? I wanted to make sure that the chat window is working properly. That would be helpful. And then anybody on TikTok, they're not going to see the same thing, but this is on YouTube. All right, Island Breeze, hello, Tens, hello. Okay, so we're good. The window's going. Good to see everybody here. And as the holidays are approaching too, I know things are getting a little bit crazy and busy. But it's important to still remain in your right sense, in your right mind, taking care of yourself, making sure that, you are doing everything you can to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your family. So Juan from Houston, good to see you. Yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? Write it in the chat. If you got questions about being a father, Tens, I love you too. I appreciate that. I live view is okay too. That's all right. We Tibet, right on. Always great to see people from all around the world. That's awesome. What, Tens, maybe you can answer, what are some different philosophies or thoughts that you think that being from Tibet has about fatherhood versus maybe the US or Western culture? Are there anything specific that you feel like might be different? I'm curious to see that. Juan, son going into middle school next year. Should I have the conversation with him about drugs, sex, and alcohol? Yes. I don't think that it's ever too young. A lot of it is dictated by what they understand and what they, the questions that they might have. So as an example, I don't think you necessarily have to come out and just, say everything about sex and everything about alcohol and everything about drugs. But certainly having those conversations and opening up, the most important thing is opening up the lines of communication so that your son knows that they can talk to you and ask those questions when they do come up. So I don't think it's too early. I think we had these kinds of conversations with our kids when they were very young. It's just contextually, our kids understood body parts. They understood that, dad had a beer, which was not something that children were allowed to have because it had alcohol content in it. Whatever the context is, the level that they're able to understand. So I don't necessarily think it is the content that matters so much, more of so that your child begins to understand that they can come to you with those kinds of questions, and that, really nothing is off limits. You're open to talk with them about whatever questions they have. Then, of course, talking to them about your own philosophies about those topics is going to influence them too. So you do have to be aware that if you have biases or you have prejudices or feelings in one way or another about something, you have to be clear about that. And an example I can give you is my wife and I have very similar parenting styles, but I will say that she is more open and maybe the word's open to discuss topics that I would have probably waited a little bit longer on. And, like any good marriage, the compromise was that she wins. That's the compromise. So I do think having those conversations, and the truth is it's been valuable for our children because our children have realized that they can come to us and they ask us questions and we have that open dialogue. So, Island Breeze, any advice for divorced fathers? Well, I'm not in that situation, but I will tell you hopefully what I would do if I was in that situation, because I like to talk from experience, and I can tell you from at least some friends and things that I've seen going through that situation is look up, if depending on how far you are in the divorce process, look up conscious uncoupling. That term was new in the sphere. There were some celebrities that had gone through it, but the idea of being very respectful and cordial and making it as best you can and supportive for the child is really what it's all about. And I think that, in many, many cases, divorce has unnecessarily brings on emotion towards the situation that ends up ruining it. So, it is an emotional thing if you're going through that, but learning how to navigate it so that you both can support each other and can be respectful towards each other and that the family is respected. I think that would be my suggestion is read that book or listen to the audio, or you could even look up YouTube videos on conscious uncoupling. I always get the words right. Somebody had mentioned that to me. I checked it out. I thought it was very, very interesting and very eye-opening. Just the idea of when you are separating, being very respectful towards each other. All right, let's see. Jay Ver. How can I help my son transition from an only child to having a sibling? Expecting my second in January. Greetings from England. Thank you for that question. I can tell you what we did. We made it very... well, it's a couple things. We made it so that we made sure we gave our son, who was our firstborn, extra attention when his sister was born. That was a big thing because you think of it in like a 2 or 3 year old's brain. You got to look and be into their brain. They're just thinking hey, there's this other thing here that's now getting mom and dad's attention that I was getting all of the attention before. So I think you got to be very conscious about the amount of attention that you are providing to your first child, and sometimes even overdo it. The second thing is we got a gift from my second child to our older son. So in other words, the baby gave my son a gift. They don't know. He was 2 years old. So basically, we bought this little ride-on car and said, "Hey, your baby sister got this for you." And he thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And he's been a great brother. And so from very early on, we made it kind of this thing that, they're in this together, they support each other, we reiterate that. And so I think giving him your firstborn a lot of extra attention. Try to, put yourself in his situation that all of a sudden something else is coming in. I think that'll go a long way. King Junglis, good to see you. So Revolution now. What do you think about situations with a new baby where the mom works more and dad is at home with the baby? Are there any cons to the baby not having enough time with mom? Well, there are cons in either situation, meaning when the mom is there with the baby a lot and dad is working, that's a con too. It's the fact that, a second parent that is different and can provide different things is not as present. So I don't want to say good or bad or whatever. In fact, we were in the summer where it was a sponsor of the Home Dad Conference. And I love the organization, the At Home Dad Network. They support and provide networking and all kinds of things for stay-at-home and work-at-home dads. And so it's a great and supportive environment. And I think the roles of what works best in your family. And so if the father does that, that's great. If it's the mother, that's great. So I don't think you can say, are there cons? Yeah, sure. Mothers traditionally are, they're providing a little bit more this is traditional stereotypes. Women provide a little bit more nurturing and soft and affection, whereas fathers provide, more sort of, whether there is rough play, the verbal, there's different aspects of, stereotypes of which male and female roles play. But yeah, I don't think that there's any negative. If it works for your family, that's great. I think you just have to adjust to that. I think that's cool. If it works for your family, that's awesome. King Junglis, I'm nervous that I ain't going to be able to understand how it goes. Yeah, everybody's nervous. It's okay. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to realize that it's totally common. It's totally normal to feel that way. And that's, there's a bunch of spam going here. Let's see.
There's a couple over here too.
Let me just get rid of some of the spam. We don't need to see those. Revolution now. What if the baby has a preference for his mother? Well, that will affect the situation for sure. Usually, not always, but usually the preference is for the parent that spends the most time with the child. Most of the time, not all the time. But also too, if mother was breastfeeding or, just in other situations, that sometimes, that can affect it. But if the baby has a preference for mother, that's something you have to work out, in between, I'm guessing there's a reason why she's working and you're not, if that works for you. If not, then you try something different where you work and she stays home. But I don't think, the baby having a preference typically is who they spend the most time with. And that's just being comfortable. And so over time, the baby will be more comfortable with both. And so that happened to me where my son, because I was working full time, that my son, when we first had him, he didn't want me to give him a bath. He didn't want me to hold him. And I kind of took it personally. I had to learn that wasn't the case. And eventually it was just, and my wife was good about it. She's like, no, you take them, do it yourself. Here, have the child, do the bath, take him for a walk. She knew, and that was smart of her at the time, to, just have my one-on-one time so that I could bond with the child. And it took some time. It didn't happen right away. So, all right. I'm watching myself in my hands on the, it's weird because I can see my video and then also watch through the, let's see. Yuri, Your friend Joe, I mean, there's a lot of Joes, but it depends on, I don't necessarily know if we want to say his last name, but could be. If he knows me personally, then that's awesome. I always appreciate welcome recommendations. Ha, Joe Mama, that was good. That's funny. Yuri, you are a comedian. If this other stuff doesn't work out, totally become a comedian. So King, it's what if the baby doesn't bond with me as well as the mother? As I had said, it's just going to take some time. The baby probably won't bond. I mean, you make the assumption that the baby's not going to bond with you right away, because it does take some time. So, yeah, that's okay. It'll be okay, but just realize that can happen. Again, guys, if you see at the top, you can support the channel, subscribe to the channel, but also supporting it. Go to that support page. You can become a member, also donate if you want to the channel, because this is how we make this stuff happen. We've got video. What happened? Does anyone else have no audio? I guess if you're answering, you'd have audio. Maybe throw it in the chat. Oh, I'm back now. What happened? See, this is live. This is what happens. Now you know it's not recorded.
They can all hear you over here.
What's going on over there? We got TikTok?
Yeah.
Any questions?
How do you respond when your toddler uses the word hate?
Can I follow up and say, do they saying like, I hate you? Or just in general, the word hate. So, individuals, yes. Okay. Well, a lot of times toddlers, and they also don't understand their feelings. That's what, like, a toddler can have a tantrum, and they are having the tantrum because they don't know how to express their feelings. So I think you can explain that, hate is a very strong word. Maybe you say, in your family, if you say we don't use that word, instead we do this. Or you start to, I think teaching your child about emotions is going to be important. And so, you start teaching them about anger and happy and sad and all these different emotions. But, them saying the word, it really doesn't mean much because they don't really understand it. They may be having a strong feeling, but they really don't understand what it means. So what I would also say is don't take it personally. When a child says, I hate you, and they're 3 years old, they don't really understand what that means. So don't take it personally. Maybe reiterate that that's just not something that we are going to say, and give them the alternative. Say instead, you say, I don't like this, or this is not my, or whatever the situation is. I think you can change the words, but it's important to give them an alternative word or words that you want them to use. So instead of saying hate, you say, I don't like this.
Okay.
That should help.
Validate his or her feelings and offer alternatives.
That's correct. You could do the lives yourself, but yes, you are validating the feelings. I mean, you're recognizing that they have emotion, and so, you're not looking to get upset with them. That's why I said about not taking it personally. When a toddler or a child is saying that, you are simply trying to understand what emotions that they have, and so yeah, you can say, hey, I can see you're upset right now. You could deploy some empathy and say, hey, I can see you're upset, but here's a word that we would use. This is a better word. Something like that.
Thank you. Very helpful.
All right. What else we got on YouTube here? Anybody else got some questions? Let me know where you're coming in from. Looks like the audio is now working back. I was answering questions on TikTok. Trying to do too many things at once. It's the story of my life. Also, too, this is 4 in the afternoon Pacific. we're also looking at the times. I'll have to post that. I'll post that on YouTube of like the best times that people like to go. We're trying to figure out too if we, should do these lives at a regular time so that people can schedule it and know, okay, hey, I know he's going to be there at 10 o'clock, and so I'll be there at 10 o'clock. So maybe I'll ask for some feedback on that.
There's another question over here, too.
Sure. Another question? I love questions.
What do you do with biting and pinching? 2-year-old, biting older sister. Gentle hands is not working.
So you keep doing it. Instead of the biting, gentle hands is not probably, but instead you could do kisses. That worked with our child at least, where instead of the biting, you reiterate no, that it's not okay. And then you do soft and you say the word soft. So a lot of times what we do with children, at 2, 3, they often, they're just kind of learning what the words no mean. And so while you can say no, it's fine, you have to give them an alternative. You have to give them something that works. So if the soft hands doesn't work, part of it just is you have to keep doing it. It is something where, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, it takes 1,000 times sometimes for them to do it. And the reason that they're doing it is a couple of potential reasons. One, they have an emotion and they don't know how to deal with it. So biting is a control, like they're able to control what they're doing. They don't like something, they can bite it, they can hit it. And so we have to give them some kind of alternative. And that alternative, so while you tell them what to do, which could be soft, something like that, as they get a little bit older, they still need some kind of emotional outlet. One of the things we did with our child is we gave them a towel or like a little biting toy. And we said, no, you bite this. You don't bite dad. You don't bite mom. You don't bite sister. You can bite this. And so we actually gave them something in which they could bite. And that seemed to reduce it a little bit as well. But I think you just need to stick with it and continue on the road of, soft touch, soft. I have there is a TikTok that I did on that was probably somewhere in there about the hitting and how to avoid the hitting. And it was really about the soft and touching soft. So hopefully that helps, but you got to stick with it. That's the problem sometimes with toddlers. It doesn't work first, second, third, 10th time. It's the repetition over and over and over again. And then sometimes too, it's, finding the root of why they're doing that. I mean, I kind of say that in the back that, situations can happen in which you got to understand why it might be happening. So they're feeling this emotion. If you notice, it's happening every time their sibling takes their toy from them. Well, then you need to, teach them about the toy, or you need to teach them. So there could be some learning involved too, depending on the situation of why it's happening. So I think it's sort of twofold. Hopefully that helps. What else, YouTube? What else you got? I only got a couple minutes here. Want to help best way I can. Saucy Sauce had asked any tips when it comes to transitioning from crib to the bed. Me and my wife are about to start with our toddler. I can just tell you what we did. There was a lot of people have different philosophies on that. We did it. It worked pretty well. My son was definitely ready to leave his crib. We had like a toddler bed, so it was still had all the things that the crib did, but it had an opening. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any specific tips I can tell you other than you just do it, and I'm not a sleep expert, but, kids have a tendency to come up out of bed because now they can. You want, in general, my advice about sleep time is that you make it a very positive thing. I think, a lot of times in kids' thoughts, like especially little kids, they have the fear of missing out. And so they feel like there's something going on and they don't want to go to sleep because they are going to miss it. They're having fun and then they have to go to sleep, so they're missing it. And so part of it is making sleep a very good thing. you and your partner talk about sleep as if it's an enjoyable thing. Oh, I love going to sleep. I love laying down in my pillow and feeling the soft bed and the sheets. Like, I love taking the bath or the shower at night and then getting into my cozy pajamas and then reading, and then like you make it a positive experience. And it's something then that the kids can look forward to, because it's story time and they get to take a bath and they get to put on their pajamas and they brush their teeth and kind of making that routine. So that's what I would say as far as transitions. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I was thinking the fact that transition shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, maybe it is for some kids. I don't maybe have great advice because our children transitioned pretty easily. There wasn't much going on there. So
that's a good point about sleep. We'll try that. Mr. Marbles.
Right on, Mr. Marbles. Hey, Liddell, how's it going? Good to see you again. Eldon, how much time should we allow our kids to be on electronics or shows on apps? Well, the national, association, like the national associations and things like that have their own amounts of time. Babies shouldn't. As they get a little bit older, it's like 30 minutes a day. They have their own things. This is my own personal opinion. I think it's as little amount as possible. This is my personal opinion. There are, that's why I said you might want to reference some studies that go into the effects that it can have on a child's brain when they're too young. But it also depends on how old of a kid you're talking about. But there are guidelines, and I think that those guidelines, hopefully, you'd hope, are appropriate based on brain science and based on tests and studies. We live in a world in which we are on our phones and our devices all times. Kids in school now that's all they use. So that's okay. As you get older, your brain has the ability to essentially to adapt to that. But there are some things that at least science has said that, early on, it might not be very good to do it. I am old school. I come from the previous generation, and I am of the belief that less is better. And so whatever that means to you and your family, we have rules in our family. My daughter is 12. She does not have a phone yet. All of her friends do, but that's our rule. And my son got it when he was 13, and she will get it when she's 13. As far as devices, we limit it. They come in, we don't have them at the dinner table. We, have certain limitations when they go to sleep. We take the device, or at a certain age, we take the device. So yeah, I do think you need to limit it. At the same time, you got to be conscious that you are limiting their device use. Then you have to kind of limit your own as well, and maybe that's in their presence. Like I always, if I'm eating even by myself and then my child comes downstairs or comes into the room, I will turn off what I'm doing. I think it's out of respect and the engagement of another human that's in your presence that I think it's important to do that. And so, yeah, I am not a fan of the devices. I think that we were fine without them. I love some of the technology and what it can do. But for kids, I don't see a tremendous amount of value. I understand communication. My children have argued that point quite a bit, that all of their friends are on these devices. But somehow my children are still able to have friends and my daughter without having the device. So, she does have a computer and they can use the computer chat or some other things. And, we're aware of that, but less is better. So, yeah, go for it.
Any suggestions on how to make drop-off at toddler daycare a positive experience? He's 2.5, and he gets very clingy.
So the question was from
Mr. Marbles.
From Mr. Marbles on TikTok about suggestions for dropping off toddler at like daycare. Is that what it was? I do actually have a video about dropping the child off at kindergarten. I think you go through the process. What we did is we actually modeled and like went through the scenario numerous times. And so we actually we had our son put on his backpack, and then we we walked over and pretended that the situation, like, hey, we're going to go to drop off and here's what we do. And so we actually went through that process over and over and over again, but many, many times. And so that's one thing I think is practicing it. The other is giving your child maybe a picture or some little token that represents you or your family. And so maybe even like a family picture, and just say, hey, you know what? You can take this with you, put it in your pocket, and you'll have this with you when you go to school or daycare, and you'll have it at all times. The other, and this is probably the most important thing, is that is the responsibility of the daycare provider. So I've seen situations, and especially at school this happens, and the teachers are often really good at it, is when a child is having difficulty, it really is crucial that the teacher come over to them, welcome them, grab their hand, pull them in, and say, hey, come with me, we're going to have some fun, whatever, and welcome that child in. That to me is like the most crucial and most successful thing. And so I think if that's not happening at the daycare, I think you have a talk with the daycare facility or the school or whatever, and say that you feel like that's really important that the teacher does that. And if they don't, maybe find a different facility. We've been lucky. We also have had to verbalize things like that. Some kids just have difficulty with the transition. It's a total common thing. You don't make a big deal about it also. Like, do not make a big deal. Don't make this big goodbye and hug and kissing for 10 minutes and whatever. Just, all right, have a great day. We'll pick you up at, this time. Some kids just really have difficulty with it. So I think it's the job of the teachers, practice it, and then give them like a little token or something or picture or something that they can take with them that reminds them of you so that they have it throughout the day. Or maybe it's their favorite stuffed animal or something like that. Ask them what they would want. Hopefully that makes sense. You got another one, or is it?
No, thank you so much.
All right.
Very helpful.
Let's see. 10. I got room for one or two more here. 10s. My son is 1 year, 8 months, and he doesn't want to get back to the stroller once he gets down. How should I handle this situation? Well, if he wants to walk, let him walk, if that's what you mean. The other is your son's 1 year, 8 months. You're probably a little bit bigger. I just put him back in the stroller. I know it sounds pretty easy, but you are the boss, and don't say it like that, but they need to do that. And so you also could, they could be having difficulty with transitions, but so I think you talk through it prior to it. So you say, hey, we're going to get out of the stroller and go do this, 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 and this. And then after we're done with that, we're going to get back in the stroller. This less than 2 years old. Think about it, like their brain isn't developing. They don't really understand it. But I think, in that situation, you can talk to them like that and say, hey, we're going to do this. And you sort of talk through it. They get out of the stroller and you say, hey, remember after this, we're going to get back in the stroller. We're going to get back in the stroller. We're going to get back in the stroller. And you just repeat that process. Other than that, if it feels constrained, maybe there's a reason why he doesn't like the stroller. Maybe it's not comfortable. There's a lot to go on here. Maybe when he's in the stroller, he gets to do something special that he doesn't get to do when he's not in the stroller. Whether that is there's a certain toy or a snack, or, you could use some positive reinforcement. That's probably what I would say. What else we got here? All right. So again, guys, if you want to support the channel, there's a link at the top. You can go to daduniversity.com/support. You can become a member, which is pay what feels good. You can choose the price that you want to pay. Also, the donate button is there if you're inclined to donate. That's how we keep this channel going. That's how I have the ability to do this, use video, create courses, do all of that is from the support and the membership of people like yourself. So if you are on TikTok, it's daduniversity.com/support. And there's a couple options there. So anything is appreciated. And I'm sure I will be doing more of these lives. I enjoy doing them. Hopefully you do too. And, if there's any other questions or so, throw them on either this chat or send us an email through the website. I'm happy to answer that. And we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.